Hello, I'm James Daggar-Nickson. Welcome to Media Week. Ahead on today's program, the Australian's Ciaran takes us through what's been a rather big week for the media, of course, including those Fairfax strikes. And we'll have an equities analyst insights into the media stocks that have been in focus over the past couple of weeks, plus all the latest television ratings. But first, well, it wasn't too long ago that Ciaran joined us on the program, where, among other things, he revealed the company would be changing its name. Well, he wasn't able to tell us what that new name might be earlier this year, as it had to be put to the company's shareholders. Well, that vote, guess what? Well, it happened today. And to tell us just exactly what the new name is, I'm pleased to say we're joined by the CEO, formerly known APN News and Media, Ciaran Davis. Ciaran, appreciate your time today.
James.
Shareholder vote today. Passed it.
Yep.
What's the new name?
So the name is HT&E, which stands for Here, There and Everywhere.
All right. Tell us about the meaning behind it.
So I think to do that, we've got to look back at where APN has come from and where it is today. So, you know, we were 3 years ago a business that 60% of our revenue was in traditional publishing. Last year, we did a lot of work to transform the business. We demerged NZME, we sold our regional publishing business, we bought the other half of Adshel, we bought Conversant Media. And it means that today we're a business now that is, you know, focused in the growth areas of radio, outdoor and digital. Free from the exposure of traditional publishing, which, you know, is obviously we're talking about a lot today. And it means that it's a new direction for the company. You know, APN stood for Australian Provincial Newspapers when we founded in 1988. And if you take it from two perspectives, if you take it from the perspective of investors and potential investors in our company, you know, when they see the name APN, they do automatically think that it's involved in traditional publishing. So that's a positive. But also then, you know, today provides us with a unique opportunity to be able to bring our assets together, to work together in terms of, you know, cross-promotion of content, but particularly from an advertising revenue perspective, the ability for us to go to market with integrated offerings, curated offerings, you know, bring our audiences together to the benefits of advertisers. That means that we've got a new direction. And APN is moving from being a holder of media assets to being an operator and a media business in Australia.
And in terms of that offering, I was reading some of the, you know, the press around and some of the reaction to it, and it seemed a lot of it around the idea of a unique offering now that the company actually brings to the Australian media landscape. Yeah.
Well, it's the first time that a media company in Australia will bring together radio, outdoor and digital. And we believe that when consumers and audiences are away from home, that they're more engaged with advertising. They're more engaged with the content that we provide, and as a result, we're providing more relevance for advertisers that, you know, advertisers reward people. Which is the opposite from in-home, you know, consumption of media, where technology is changing how we all consume media. And that flight of advertising dollars away from in-home, you know, free-to-air, TV, also print, to away-from-home advertising dollars, means that we're ideally placed to actually take a share of that revenue. And what we're doing is going to market with offerings, you know, trying to prove our return on investment, that away-from-home advertising provides more engaged audiences and therefore provides better solutions for advertisers. But equally what we're also doing is showing that what we can do in market is bring audiences and influences audience from the consumption of content, which is better informed for advertisers.
And it leads me to one of the quotes you were quoted as saying, it encapsulates, this, in regards to the new name, it encapsulates a better proposition for our audience, advertisers and shareholders. And you were sort of touching on there, I assume, exactly what that proposition is to all those key stakeholders. So
if you take the content we produce on radio and increasingly the broadcast content that we can do through Adshel, and when you take assets that we have like Conversant Media, which is consumed on mobile, we have a great opportunity to cross-promote and provide content across each of those platforms. That, if we do that, when people are more engaged, means that advertisers will provide a much more better environment for them. And therefore, if we're getting more revenue coming through, we're getting better value for shareholders. So it's a complete redirection from where APN has been in the past, and it's a much more aggressive approach to how we are going to go to market.
And I mean, how do you see and how do you expect the new name to be incorporated across all of those different operations that you have?
So it's really important to understand that ARN, which is our radio division, and Adshel, our outdoor division, and Conversant, they will all have their own unique identity and keep going. It's really important that they fight for audiences and dollars on their own. But where there are opportunities, and we particularly see opportunities, you know, in the areas of free-to-air TV advertisers, where we can prove to them that actually by apportioning a less amount of money to free-to-air and to our assets, that we can provide a better return on investment. That's what we're about. And it's about providing integrated solutions and providing a better return on investment.
And are you starting to be able to deliver that evidence to those advertisers about the benefits now of that multi-pronged approach that you can offer?
Yeah, it's early days, but yes, we are. So we did a great case study for the Western Australia Road Safety Authority, whereby we synced the broadcast of our radio ads with the broadcast on a digital screen through Ad Shelf. Right. And it was to advertise the keeping a distance for cyclists on the road. Obviously, that technology to be able to sync the broadcast is really, really exciting for advertisers. But it also meant early days that the level of awareness for the campaign was through the roof. The level of changing the KPIs and changing road safety awareness was through the roof. And I know the Western Australia Road Safety Authority is very pleased with the results. But they are that's one example of a number of pieces of case studies that we roll out, plus also large pieces of research over the next 2 or 3 months.
Just on rebranding again, people might say, oh, they've changed their name, but it's a major undertaking for a major listed company. Can you give us some sort of insight into, how big a process it is, the detail involved, and of course, sort of cost associated with doing something like this? So
this process started around the time when we acquired the remaining 50% of Ad Shell. We got all the senior executives together, and it's more than just a name, it's more than just a rebrand, it's a different way of thinking for the business. So we worked through what the advantages were. In terms of the cost, actually, we've got really creative people in our business. We worked with Bohemia, who were very, very good for us, but the cost was no more than a couple $100,000 because we have creative people. Now, we looked at 200 or 300 different names, to be fair, but when we saw Here, There and Everywhere, it encapsulated everything that we are doing. We are away from home, we're providing content that is consumed here, there and everywhere for the benefit of advertisers who we're delivering more engaged audiences to.
Now, as mentioned, this went before shareholders had to approve in terms of the change of name. What's the reaction been when you talk about the direction that the company is taking in terms of this unique offering? Is it generally a positive one? What's the kind of feedback that you've been getting?
From shareholders, it has been positive. I think the changes that we've made to the business last year have been well received. We raised over $400 million in capital. That was well supported. People realise that the changes we've made to move away from traditional publishing have actually saved shareholders from significant reduced shareholder value. We sold ARM to News Corp in December for $36 million. That was a really important decision for our company because at the end of the day, we could not have done much more with that business that a larger organisation could do. And we were faced with significant shutdown costs potentially in that business. So we have shaved shareholder value from that perspective. In terms of where we're going and the repositioning, it is very well received by shareholders. Now what we've got to do is go and prove it.
Now, in a rather fortuitous piece of timing, of course, announcement earlier today, the ACCC issued a notice in terms of the proposed merger between oOh!media and APN Outdoor, flagging competition concerns, a red flag in terms of this $1.6 billion process. No doubt a welcome initial response from you from the ACCC.
It's early days, so I've just come from the AGM, so I'm having a look at it. But I think the issue of consolidation in the outdoor market is really important that we consider the issues really carefully. So the fact that the ACCC are taking more time to do that is a very good thing. I think what we have to remember is that the outdoor industry has benefited in the last 2 or 3 years from innovation and from investment in digitalisation. And if we're to continue the flow of dollars into the outdoor industry, then we've got to make sure that we maintain that level of innovation for the benefit of advertisers. Because if that level of sophistication, of innovation, of digitalisation is not there for advertisers, then we will see a flow of dollars away from the industry.
And you think a tie between these two companies would stymie innovation in the space?
I think it's important that we consider it. As in competition with any sector, it's important that we consider it, consider all the issues from every angle, and I'm pleased that they've actually taken the time to look a bit further at the issues.
And did you take part in expressing concerns to the ACCC over?
We have had conversations with them, yes we have.
Yeah. Ciaran Davis, appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, plenty of action in the media space. Some of it good, some of it rather bad. We're going to get you across the major news stories of the week next.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
How's your day?
Good. I'm just walking along the beach.
Right, Ciaran.
Breaks down a long dark street and a sign.
How was your day?
Hey, do you mind if I call you back?
In the
I'll
night.
talk to you then.
If you knew
Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
how this moment means to me, and how long I've waited for your touch. It feels like home to me. Feels like home to me. Feels like I'm all the way back where I belong.
There's tough. And then there's a new breed of tough. The new Amarok, now standard with App Connect and rear view camera. From only $42,990 drive away, now with free 8-speed auto.
Here at Open Agent, we take the stress out of selling your home, helping you find an agent you can trust to sell your home the easy way. And the best part is, it's absolutely free. Simply visit openagent.com.au and type in your postcode to instantly discover agents in your area who have sold homes like yours and know what they sold for. Next, compare agent reviews.
I got 20% more than the original evaluation.
Now that's what I call a stress-free sale. You can also personalise your search with a call to our research team standing by to make your experience even easier. No wonder 60,000 Australians visit Open Agent each month to effortlessly sell their home. Remove the guesswork and let Open Agent do the hard work for you. Sell your home the easy way, the stress-free way, to secure the right agent and best price for your home. Call or visit openagent.com.au.
Mess. It's just part of life. But thanks to Black & Decker's 2-in-1 cordless vac with lithium power and integrated dustbuster, you can stay on top of it, because life's for living, not for cleaning. The Black & Decker cordless stick vac range, available from these retailers.
His is one of the most famous voices in Australian radio history.
I don't know about that.
The face seen on TV for decades and has a life full of great stories. Now, John Laws has put them all in a brand new book, and he'll be our special guest tonight on Paul Murray Live.
Welcome back to Media Week. Well, Fairfax staff striking for a second day today after the company announced it's axing 125 staff from its flagship newspapers. Sky News Melbourne reporter Ella Duffy is at the Age headquarters in Melbourne.
Journalists here say they don't want to go on strike but insist they have no other option. Fairfax is cutting 1 in 4 positions across major newspapers to save millions of dollars in the face of declining advertising and sales revenue. The company revealed its second half earnings this morning. Group revenue is down 6% and its metro media revenue has plunged 11%. Staff say they understand the need to cut costs but insist the company should look at other avenues.
We expect the company to understand that this is the only thing that we can do to protest our disgust at these job cuts, and we ask them to look at their own salaries and their own executive bonuses and think about cutting from there.
A Fairfax spokesperson said the strikes are unlawful, saying it would be deducting journalists' pay for every day it goes on. But the company says it will continue to publish across its print and digital platforms. It comes during a busy week. Striking staff won't be covering Tuesday's federal budget. Journalists will have a continued presence here and in Sydney throughout today, rallying support as their future hangs in the balance. Ella Duffy, Sky News, Melbourne.
Let's bring in Darren Davidson, the Australian's media editor, to take us through that, plus some of the other stories making headlines this week. Darren, appreciate your time today. Let's start with Fairfax, because very much dominating headlines at the moment. And look, we knew the cost-cutting and potential redundancies were on their way, but what did you make of, I suppose, the size of the proposed redundancies and the manner, I suppose, in which it's been done? Because that's coming for some criticism as well.
Yeah, some commentators have said that they've done it in a brutal fashion. They've given, there's a quite short deadline, which is Tuesday, for people to apply, and after that, presumably, there will be forced job cuts. But it had been flagged already. They said last month they were looking to make annual savings of $30 million. So we were, until yesterday, I think the market and the staff at Fairfax were waiting for a number, and that's 125 jobs to go, which is a quarter of the editorial workforce across the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, the Australian Financial Review, and some of their other titles. And this morning we had some pretty dramatic scenes at the annual Macquarie Media Conference. where Greg Highwood was talking. He did a trading update which kind of laid bare why they feel they need to do these cuts. Group revenue is down 11%. Actually, sorry, I should say group revenue at the Metro Media Division, which houses those newspapers, is down 11%. Across the group, it's a more moderate 6% when you include Domain, their fast-growing real estate business. That slightly offsets the higher revenue declines of the newspapers, and that's why they're addressing their cost base.
And the decision as well by Fairfax journalists to strike has made mention in the package beforehand. In terms of timing, goodness me, of course, incorporating coverage of the budget, one of the biggest news stories each year.
Yeah, that's right. It's the timing couldn't really be worse. I mean, Budget Week is traditionally the highest, the best week for sales for newspapers. They would normally have their highest sales, so that's really going to hurt their output and also their reputation. How can you cover the crucial Turnbull second budget in a credible way if you don't have any staff? And it's a 7-day walkout, so they won't return until later next week. There'll be no coverage of the A-League final this weekend, and the budgets. There's some pretty big stories happening at the moment.
I want to switch focus a little bit to one of your stories, actually, which got picked up very broadly, just regarding Facebook and their ability to target actually people when they're, I suppose, that at their lowest, young people when they're feeling insecure. I mean, this is quite incredible.
Yeah, I obtained a secret internal document marked confidential only. It's 24 pages long. It's a presentation to a top 4 bank. It's authored by two of Facebook's top executives in Australia, and it basically lays out how they can identify moments in a young person's life when they feel anxious, stressed, overwhelmed, like a failure. And this is part of a presentation. It's research in the document, and it raises some profound ethical questions about the way in which Facebook monitors users' activity, and then what it actually does with that information. Facebook sent me a statement at the weekend apologising, and they've said they'll open a review into this information that came my way. We published it on Monday in the paper on the front page. And the pickup internationally has been pretty wide. I mean, it's been covered in the US, the UK, Europe, New Zealand. I've been doing interviews with foreign media outlets from Portugal to San Francisco to London. So there's a lot of interest in Facebook all over the world at the moment, and they're coming under pressure on a lot of fronts. There's tense relations with the European Union at the moment over competition, and this morning Mark Zuckerberg, in fact, the founder, has blogged about how they're taking certain steps to pull down controversial content. We've obviously had a murder broadcast on the platform and other really extremist content. And they've come under a lot of pressure about how quickly they respond to that, and people have said they don't respond quickly enough. So they've just outlined plans to take on more staff to monitor their content, because they now, we talk about them as a digital platform, a social network. What they really are is they are the world's biggest publisher, and all they really are, essentially, when you boil it down, is an advertising business. But they don't really seem to be taking those responsibilities that come with that very seriously.
No, and look, you saw the latest numbers in terms of their earnings report, and just staggering some numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers being published by Facebook. Back home for a moment, free-to-air networks. Channel 10 continues to be obviously under a cloud, waiting, hoping for some funding from shareholders, from guarantors. Also had an ally from an unlikely source in the Channel 9 CEO saying that the market needs a strong, viable Channel 10.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's a pretty sensible, pragmatic comment by Hugh Marks, the Channel 9 CEO. He believes believes that the sector will be a lot healthier and more competitive if you have, strong competitors, which stands to reason. Channel 10, and he will be going into bat to compete with them for the cricket rights quite soon as well. So I suppose it's surprising for him to say that in the context of that, and he'd love to retain the rights that he has, and possibly even add the Big Bash rights as well. We had their half-year result recently. They posted a loss. They did a big write-down, which is on par with all media companies at the moment. And Channel 10's result, I mean, what their troubles link to the story you've just mentioned, which is Facebook. What we saw this morning is that the media landscape has become a mobile digital media landscape, and all the ad dollars are shifting to two companies, Facebook and Google. And so that's, that's the big pressure that's on media companies at the moment, and it's something that Greg Highwood has talked about this week, and Paul Anderson, the Channel 10 CEO, has talked about as well. They're coming under enormous pressure from that online ad duopoly. There's not much growth in the ad market. That's their main source of income, and all the growth is going to those two companies. Two companies that have very limited corporate tax liabilities in this country and don't pay for their content and just take it from TV networks and magazine companies and newspapers and have none of those overheads. And that's how they're making their business at the moment.
Yeah, and as you say, certainly squeezing the local publishers and networks at the moment. Darren Davidson, as always, appreciate your analysis. Thank you. The Australian's media editor there. Let's check in and talk media stocks, how they've fared this week. Ben LeBrun from Options Express joins us now. And look, it was obviously dominated last week by 10, some significant falls. How's that faring? And Fairfax, what have you been watching in terms of the media stocks this week, Ben?
Well, it's been an interesting week for media stocks in terms of share price reaction. Certainly the hits have kept coming for 10. Obviously, they're looking for a white knight or some sort of saviour. There's been a lot written and reported. One article that certainly caught my eye this week was former NRL star Benny Elias saying the National Rugby League should take a stake or maybe a full takeover tilt at the 10 network. So
what? Really?
Yeah. Well, he said, there's the synergies that could be unlocked, and obviously they've had trouble getting live blue ribbon sporting content. The only thing that they've got, obviously, is the Big Bash, which rates very, very well. And obviously they've got the likes of John Singleton, your Gingills, all on side in terms of the rugby league. So it was a left field story, but certainly one I thought that might be worth mentioning. Otherwise, private equity consortiums, etc. We're all talking about them potentially looking at 10. It's going to be an interesting time when the federal budget hits, just to see if they make any changes to the licensing that they need to pay, those exorbitant fees. It's hard not to be on Channel 10's side on this issue, because consistently they've had to write down the value of that free-to-air TV licence. So if something changes in the budget, maybe that might be a catalyst for a little bit of a sea change in terms of share price. But certainly 10's pain has been 9 and 7's gain. They've both had reasonably good weeks in terms of share price performance. Of course, 9 came out and reaffirmed guidance. A lot of talk about that institution being the cricket rights, that they'll only renew at the right price. That'd be amazing if that ever was not on Channel 9 anymore. And 7 West still doing it reasonably well, but of course, as I said, 10's pain is certainly perceived as 9 and 7's gain. And I think in 9's update, they certainly alluded to that fact that they stand themselves in pretty good position to be able to take advantage of any suffering that or any hemorrhaging from 10. Fairfax, incredible, because it's been portrayed in the press as being quite a negative event. And I picked up the Sydney Morning Herald this morning with all the strike action. It was very thin, but it was certainly on newsstands this morning. So that was interesting. Of course, when we talk about job cuts and cost savings, it's played out in quite a negative sense in the media. The adverse reaction in the share price. Shares, well, they weren't significantly high, but they certainly did go up on the release of them trying to save another $30 million. Obviously, jobs go by the wayside. It's the same old story for Fairfax. And, of course, the jewel in the crown is Domain, which they still plan on spinning off. And, we've talked about private equity consortiums circling the company, really looking to get their hands on that jewel in the crown, potentially before any spin-off. So that story's still, there's whispers around the market, but nothing at this stage. And, of course, all we can focus on is the job cuts, which actually the share price actually liked this week.
Indeed. Ben LeBrun, appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben LeBrun there over at Options Express. Ratings time. Let's take a look at the ratings for the week 17. We'll kick off with Free to Air. You can see taking out the top spot, My Kitchen Rules, also taking out the second top spot. I think I assume for the grand finale. 7 News Sunday, so 7 dominating top 3 spots. Top 4 spots, Channel 9 getting a look in with The Voice in the 5th spot there. Turning over the page from 6 to 10, The Voice once again, 7 News. The Voice, 9 News Sunday coming in 9th spot, and 7 News / Today Tonight taking out the 10th spot. Let's take a look at subscription ratings for Week 17. The AFL dominating. Was always going to be interesting to see once both major codes in the NRL and AFL kicked off where we'd see the ratings go to. Well, Week 17, certainly a win for the AFL. Essendon versus Collingwood taking out the top spot, GWS Bulldogs. Then you get the Storm and Warriors, the first look in the 3rd spot. Flicking over the page from 6 to 10. Selling Houses Australia, Grand Designs also there. Real Housewives, Wentworth and The Simpsons for Fox 8. And that is it for Media Week for this week. Thanks very much for watching.